always like your niche thing that makes you you, and it's not awkward or weird to focus on that. So just focus on that. I think mine was clothing and stuff like that, and it's something I've focused on from middle school all the way till now, and I think it'll become important, not just for, I think it shapes who you are, and it's a big definition of who you are. So just focus on the small niche things that make you you. And
Welcome to the Thriving in the Middle podcast. Believe it or not, I chose to spend the rest of my life in middle school. I've been teaching for over 19 years, and my primary goal can be boiled down into one task: developing human potential. My three favorite educational words are autonomy, agency, and authenticity. There is nothing more authentic than hearing about the realities of middle and high school life directly from the students who have lived through it. Whether you're a parent looking for perspective, a teacher trying to better understand your students, or a student looking for some guidance, this podcast has something for everyone. The goal is to not only help you survive, but thrive during this complicated time of life. Let's do some digging. Ready? Let's thrive together. Today we are joined by Beckett Long. Beckett is a current senior at GHS in the graduating class of 2025. I did not have the chance to have Beckett as a student, but I did have his sister in class, and I know his dad pretty well. Beckett just finished an awesome senior football season. He runs his own business, and he's juggling his final semester before he heads off to college. So I know your life is crazy. This is like a busy time where you're processing and doing all the things and still trying to be a human being. And so I'm grateful that you took a pause to come in and talk to us today. Hi, Beckett.
hi, thank you for having me.
100%. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just jump into our first question here. Although I didn't get to know you personally, it's been a lot of fun. I've got to watch your football season through the post of your dad, which I don't know, that's something. I'm a dad, and so when I look at my son, I'm so proud of the things he's doing, and so it's been fun to watch your dad filter that and see your season through his eyes. Alongside of being the quarterback, you also play lacrosse. You're the senior class president. You're taking AP courses. You own your own small business, which I'm excited to talk about later in the podcast. And then you got to have a social life, and you got to have time to sleep and breathe and all those other important things for your mental health and finding downtime. So thinking about juggling all that stuff, I'm wondering if you found strategies and what's your go-to, how do you manage all that and keep your sanity?
Yeah, I think as a student, as a high schooler, I think there's three things that sort of taken over my life and probably a majority of other people's lives is your social, your academic, and then your athletic. So I think the biggest thing is what I've focused on throughout my high school career is having a big balance of those three big things where it's what do I need to put effort in on this day, what is taking my time in this section of the month, this section of the year, this section of the day. So I think sort of balancing out your athletics, your social, and your academics is like sort of what has allowed me to hit every single one of those things with as much effort and as much enthusiasm as I could throughout my high school. But I think it all switches throughout the time of the year. Like right now as a senior, my social is a big thing because I'm in a down season of sports. My academics is I've got into my college, I've got into my thing. So I'm not just taking a step back, but I think right now social is which is like family, friends, my business, anything that's like not school or sports related. So I think social right now has been a big thing. But definitely my junior year was, I think academics and athletics was my big focus during that time where it's like, I think they sort of trade off throughout the time of the year, throughout the time of high school. Like when I come in as a freshman, it's like, oh, I'm juggling all three at once. Like I don't know what I want to do on a certain day if I need to sit down and do my homework, but my friends are texting me to come out and I had practice till 6, where it's like at that time where you step into high school, those three things are all meshing together at once for the first time, really. I mean, middle school, you have everything, but I think high school, it all sort of comes together where your social, your academics, and your athletics are all taking time. They're all pulling at you, tugging at you each way. So it's sort of like what I learned is like what is important to me at that time is what I'm going to focus on. And if one day my academics isn't going great and I just need to focus on sports, or I need to focus on my friends and my social, that's what I'm going to focus on. And academics maybe next day is something that like, oh, it's sparked again, and that's where I'm going to focus on. But it's really just a cycle of like what at that time I need to focus on. And it switches every day. But right now, I think I'm more in my social aspect of it, and athletics will come with lacrosse, and academics has always been a big thing and will always be a big thing. So usually just cycling through those three is a big part of like how I journey, is choosing what my attention is needed at that time.
Yeah, I really like, and just to reiterate, I like this idea of compartmentalizing these sort of three components of your life. And for whatever reason in my head, it reminds me of the investing strategy where you've got this like spend, save, share bucket. But the reality is, when you're pouring into those buckets, your athletics, your academic, and your social, there isn't an infinite amount inside of that cup that you can't keep pouring. So if you pour everything into one, you're leaving out. And the reality is sometimes that's out of our control. And so I love that, when you say it's seasonal, sometimes it's a year, or it's a big chunk of, it's not that I can balance those things equally every single day or every single week. It's that sometimes, a month might be, I'm really involved. Football, I'm sure was sort of a, when you're in football season, it's driving and taking up a lot of your time. And so the reality that you may be pouring into one bucket more, but making sure that you find time to balance those buckets out later on and in other chunks of your life. That's really good advice.
I also think that one thing that has always been important for me was always maintaining that I always had a hand in each bucket. I never had a time where one of those buckets was empty. It was always, no matter what the time was, even if my focus was on one thing, I always made sure that every single one of those things had effort into them. So I think that was also a big important part for me, was like, I think this is the biggest thing that I've always reiterated with my family. And like when they ask like how like throughout high school, just having that balance of all three. It's like always, no matter what, at a certain time, those three things are being met for me, which has been the best way that I've got through high school without like falling in either of those categories.
I love that. I think you just said it, but just I was going to ask that follow-up question. Where do you think that came from? Because that's a pretty mature perspective and awareness to have. I think a lot of people just are burning on both ends, and they're not balancing their life, and so there's a lot of mental health and stress and anxiety that goes along with that. And so was that parents? Was that, is that a conversation that was happening at home?
Yeah, I think my parents have always been super supportive of like throughout my life of like what my decision making is, and I think the way that they've always thought about it is they're gonna support me as well as I'm putting 100%, no matter what the thing is, no matter what the outcome is. They're always gonna support if I'm putting my full effort into a thing. So sometimes my effort's split up between multiple things at once, and they understand that maybe the result of one thing might not be as great as it was if my 100% effort was on one thing. But I think just their support with, if they see me putting my 100% effort into one thing, that they're going to support that no matter what that outcome is.
Was it a conversation about the balance? Like, was that something you seem to remember growing up, or do you think that was just intrinsic, something it just kind of like was a focus for you?
I mean, I think everyone has to balance things. So I think seeing like, I don't know, it's not really been like a conversation with them, but I think viewing as when you grow up, you see your parents balance their work, I think their big balance is taking care of you. So I think with my parents, there's always a funny story that we have, is that there's one day I had soccer practice, football practice, and baseball practice all within the same day. And I think it's just seeing them, I mean, they had to balance my own schedule, but like it was just a funny story where like I had these 3 practices in one day, and that was like a time where like you can see them, like they had to balance it. And just the way that my brain works is I usually like, not that I plan out everything, but I'm pretty good at like measuring out like what am I going to focus on today, or what is going to bring my attention that day or throughout the next month.
Yeah, I love that. Shout out mom and dad for balancing all that stuff and pulling it out. Cool. All right, let's move on to the next question. We talked about this briefly in the intro, but you have your own business, which I think is incredibly cool. A lot of times on this podcast, I like to focus and feature people who just have a job, because that's a pretty rare thing these days. Because of all the stuff we just mentioned and how busy students are, they often don't have time. And so you've carved out time in those buckets there to be an entrepreneur and start your own business. And I actually heard of it via your lacrosse coach, Adam Stewart. Shout out Adam Stewart. And he was just so excited about it. He's like, you're not going to believe this. This is so cool. And so it's called Ruff Cuff. It's on the platform. Help me.
It's just called Depop, but
Depop,
it's all like clothing.
Yeah. When I said, I was like, oh, it's like a clothing. All my students were like, Depop. I was like, yes, Depop. Sorry. And it's pretty amazing. So I'm just curious if you'd tell us a little bit about it. Where did the idea come from? What's it like to run a business, and just run us down that road a little bit.
Yeah, of course. So I think it really started was when my parents stopped funding my closet and what I was paying for. I think you always have that back to school shopping where it's like, oh, you have $100 to go spend at the outlet mall. And like, I think once I got into 8th grade and freshman year, it was like, I was like the clothes that I was wanting and the clothes like style that I was pursuing and having to wear was like, you had to fund it yourself and how you wanted to wear it. But also this clothing I sell is, I like primarily focus on vintage clothing. So it's not really that expensive, but like the way that I find it is like through these thrift stores and stuff like that. So I'm getting at a really reasonably low price at these thrift stores. And
you're going to make me feel really old as you say vintage clothing, because I think it's era circa 90s and early 2000s.
I think, that 90s era is really where it's at. Yeah. So, but it really all started with like trying to fund my own closet and that. But I've always had like this like sort of like entrepreneurial aspect within I don't know, it's sort of like that, trying to fill that need to like make money so I can spend on like little knickknacks. It used to be like Legos or like unnecessary items when I was younger. But like I remember when I was 6th grade to like 4th grade, and I would do a lemonade stand and sell duct tape wallets, and like that was sort of like the first ever time I had like sold something that was like I had made and was like got like my own money that I had worked for. And then
my youngest son Hayes did the whole duct tape wallet for a moment and made quite a bit of money. It was pretty crazy.
I know it was a fun thing too, because it was like hands on. So it wasn't just like you got to like, especially when you see like a product that you've done yourself like made and you're like, oh, like people are willing to spend money on it. I think that was probably like the coolest part, where it's like, oh, like people are willing to spend money on the thing that I just made.
And I think part of it was people appreciated his entrepreneurial efforts, but they were actually pretty cool looking like wallets when they are.
I remember I got into it where I was like buying like plastic cardstock and like putting them in, and then eventually duct tape wallets morphed into like during COVID. I was like, I think it's all like people that get into like clothing and like what they wear usually starts with around sneakers. So I think I was super into sneakers around middle school, especially in middle school, back with all the sneakerhead stuff. And then
did you put the inserts so that they wouldn't crease?
I did, the crease protectors. I had those. But during COVID, extreme downtime, right? So I had started this is where like I think the reselling of like secondhand clothing really started. Was I would sit on eBay and just search for like scroll and just look up sneakers and like hit the like price of like $10 and under and just see what was for sale and try and find shoes that were like if I buy these and clean them up, like would someone else want them? And like at that time I remember I kept buying like basketball shoes was what I would do. I don't know, it was Jordans and like Kobe's is what I kept buying at that time, and it was just like I would try and find them for as cheap as possible. They come in with like paint splatters. The sole would be like yellow. So I spent about like a couple days cleaning them up and then relist them on eBay. Or at that time, most of my sales, I like had gained a clientele from my dad from posting on social media. So I would get like his friends would like text me like, oh, can you find this pair of retro 11s or like Jordans that they had when they were a kid? And I would try and find a cheap pair on eBay and have a little bit of profit margin and clean them up and sell it to them.
Yeah, I'm going to pause you for a second. I have some more questions, but just for parent listeners that are out here, is, you know, I kind of market this to parents, to teachers, and to students. And so parent listeners, man, your dad knew what he was doing as he was in the background encouraging, I'm sure, and you know, the willingness to like, yeah, do this, and of course I'll sell that on. So I do the same thing with my kids. I just like throwing gasoline on fires wherever I see this interest. I'm like 100%, let's go. What a entrepreneurial experience that was happening there that then fanned the flames for, you know, what was going to happen later.
For sure.
You know, you learn in commerce, you're learning that, oh, there's shipping costs here and this is going to cost, and and how much do I have in fixing these up, and what was my opportunity cost, and how much time did I put into that. And so just to highlight that and say how important as a parent that is, if you can find those opportunities to give those experiences, or even just get out of the way, which is some of it, and just let it happen. That's pretty special. All right, so you're selling sneakers.
Yeah. So then sneakers, I think so. Once sneakers, I think your whole outfit, you can't have a whole outfit without clothes, right? So eventually sneakers morphed into clothes. And with the parent aspect, I remember the first time I started selling clothes was beginning of sophomore year. So I couldn't drive. So there's a place called the Goodwill Bins, which is, I'm sure maybe your students will know. It's like a sell by the pound clothing store. And I remember my dad drove me there for the first ever time because I had seen it online or someone recommended it or something like that. And it was like, when you walk in this building, it's a big warehouse just full of big blue bins of clothing that's about $2 a pound. And it's like completely overwhelming. People are like running around. People are grabbing clothes. Like you have no idea what to look for. You have no idea what to find.
Is that like is it always open, or are they only open that at like special
Yeah, so
times,
it's
or?
open. It's just a regular Goodwill like
Okay.
retail store technically. It's open probably every day except for maybe like those holidays here and there. But I really got into like the vintage clothing once I probably got into like 8th grade into freshman years, like when like I started focusing less on the shoes and like more on like what my outfit was. And a lot of that, the trend right now especially still is the 90s and the Y2K 2000s is pretty strong. So
How did you learn that part? Like, was it through your own interest of fashion and understanding what people like and what you liked, and that was what you purchased, or how did you understand?
yeah,
what
so I
people were
think
looking
a
for?
lot of it is just trends. I think a lot of what I've tried to do now is not focus on the micro trends, but at the time when I got into it, it was the sneakers were trending into vintage. So it was like sort of like your next step from sneakers would be into clothing and vintage. So it was like not necessarily like there's a lot of micro trends now with clothing, which I try and avoid just from where I buy my clothing. There's a lot of vintage stores and a lot of thrift stores, so I haven't tried to feel much into it. But I think at the time when I got into it, it was the trend of what it was, and I had sort of stuck with it from now on until now, and it's just become like my entire personality within like what I wear, I guess, and how I express myself, which has always sort of been a unique way as well. I think the way that I dress is I've always dressed. I think when I was younger was a lot of people question the way I dress just because it wasn't when you're in 8th grade wearing jeans and
Yeah.
vintage shirts every day. It's a little different than wearing the sweatpants and the Nike hoodies. But I mean,
It's the I say, I don't know if anybody's listening when I say it, but I say it a lot to my middle schoolers. I'm like, don't lose the thing. Like, whatever it is that makes you weird and unique right now is actually what the world's going to reward later. And so much of middle school is, how can I look like everyone else or fit in, or not stand out. And so I'm glad that you were willing to sort of like be your own human being and let people be like, what are you wearing, or what is that? Because the weirdness is what it's why you're on the planet. It's what you have to offer, the thing that makes you unique. So I love that.
for sure. And then it's just the clothing business has been going on since sophomore year till now. I mean, I try and do around 3 sales a day, which it doesn't seem like much, but I mean, within passive income, you're just sitting there and you get a tick on your phone and it's a sale. So it's
when you say you try to do 3, you're just hoping that 3 from your platform hit.
yeah.
Or are you
So
doing
about
active
so
things?
I usually go thrifting about 2 times a week is my goal. So on average, I'm spending, depending on the place I'm buying, if I go to the Goodwill bins, I'm spending about $2 at most on an item. At like the regular ones with like the hangers and stuff, you're spending maybe around $4 an item. So I try and buy when I go like 2 times a week. I try and spend around like usually around like $50 a week is what I'm spending money wise. And then
Do you factor time into that, or is that just you enjoy doing it?
it's something
so
I
it's
enjoy.
not
So it's not like, I mean, sometimes the driving is a hassle. Sometimes the sifting through everything. But I enjoy it because it's sort of like a treasure hunt.
You'd
So
be
it's
there
like,
anyways.
Yeah, I would be
Right.
there anyways looking for myself. And the adrenaline of you finding one item is like the other week I found like a Carhartt Detroit jacket, which is like in the world of vintage is like a pretty decent item. And it's like, it was like this just the adrenaline rush of like finding an item like that, and it's like, oh, like your heart drops the second you see it. So I think that's what keeps me like going without like thinking it's like a chore, thinking it's
Yeah.
a job.
We do a similar, not similar at all, but similar in that like hunting, and it's just something we enjoy doing. We search penny rolls, which sounds so weird and lame, but we're looking for wheats or Indian heads, and you will find them, and it's not at all about making any money. It's just this like sort of therapeutic, relaxing.
It
and then
keeps you going
find it
back.
and you're
yeah.
like, look at this. What was it that? So if go back to me, I cared about fashion when same thing, middle school into high school. The clothes that I was wearing, my parents didn't have a ton of money, so there wasn't even an opportunity if there was a willingness to buy a lot. So I went and got a job, which I love the fact that similar situation. You're like, okay, I gotta fuel and fund the clothing that I want to wear, but I'm gonna start my own business. What do you think? Like, what do you think was the early entrepreneur sort of experience that clicked that button instead of saying I'm gonna go get a job somewhere? I'm gonna build this business out.
I think so, and I think it was the pairing of the two because I was fueling my closet with. I had worked at Wits previously, but I think like the combination of I'm making money through clothing to buy clothing, and I'm also buying clothing for a relatively cheap price at thrift stores that like I'm keeping for myself. So like, my friends always come over and go through my closet or stuff like that, or like the amount of jeans I have. But it's like in reality, I'm spending probably like on 10 pairs of jeans the same price as if you were to go to Abercrombie and buy a pair for a full price. So.
Do you have a storage system? I mean,
so
I looked at your for sale items, and there's a lot, right?
Yeah, so I have about like 500 items for sale, which is like usually it fluctuates between like 300 to 500. Like there was a couple months, I mean, to be honest, like with that going into senior year with college and stuff, like it was a dead period. I did not list. I did not try and sell. I did not try and buy. I was focused on college and stuff like that and football. But like, yeah, it's just I've sort of taken over, like we have an unfinished basement that like I just have massive racks of clothing, and like my mom will get mad because right now I've like run out of hangers or too lazy to put stuff, and I'll just start throwing them in death piles, and there's piles of ground. Like the other day I sold an item, I spent like 10 minutes trying to find it, and it's just like in a big pile on the ground.
That's what I was wondering, because the inventory part where now I sold it, I got to go find that.
Yeah, it's sometimes the hassle is the listing and posting part, and the actual selling it, not the thrifting and finding it.
And you had to figure out the whole shipping to know what is it. Just kind of you got a good idea flat rate now of what an item will cost.
When I started off, shipping was always a big thing. So it's like what I actually found out was the taxes and the shipping was the big thing, because originally I was charging shipping like on the outside, so I'd have to pay. They would pay me for shipping, and I would go and buy the labels. But through like the app that I do on, they have their ability to print labels in itself, which is just pretty seamless. And what I've done now, and it makes it super easy. But
do they just is there a fee associated with that?
Yeah, the buyer. It's like it's all through with like how they do it. But I mean, it's pretty interesting. It's just like the way I like it, because it's almost as seamless as posting on Instagram, where I think a lot of platforms take a lot of effort to, like eBay, for example, is a lot more effort than posting on Depop. So I don't know. It's been pretty easy for me and not much effort, and I get to feel my own closet well, feel my wallet as well, which is good.
The unique thing about Depop, well, it's only clothing, and so I often struggle when I have students who are like, I want to sell this thing, whatever it is, finding a great platform that's easy. So I love that is out there for that. But to your point, selling anything in a different commerce space, it can be really complicated. Yeah. And I showed both my boys your website, and I was like, look at what he's built out. And my older son's eyes lit up. He loves business. He's really in love with money. And I said, but you can't do this because it's really a passion-driven thing. You don't have the wherewithal, the understanding, the fashion, the clothing to go buy the right things. You could put a whole lot of things out there on this website, but they're not going to be the right items. And so I love that. I talk. It almost comes up every podcast, but Ikigai, which is this Japanese concept where it's what the world needs, what you enjoy doing, what you're good at, and what you can get paid to do. And if you find this synergy between those things, and I just hear that in this, you're like already doing it and you loved it, found a way to monetize it, providing a service, you're pushing this clothing out there, recycling clothing too.
Yeah,
even though
for
that's
sure.
maybe
I think that's a big thing as well, where it's like what I talked about, like sort of touched on like the micro trends, where it's like so much of this clothing nowadays is like being mass produced at like a mass level. And I think
and intentionally designed to fail, at a pretty rapid rate. It's not meant to last a really long time.
Mr. Redding, I think I took his class last year, and it was interesting.
Shout out Mr. Redding.
Yeah, it was interesting just to see like just perspective of, like through that environmental aspect of with clothing, and like that's like I did like a little bit of my project with like that, just focusing on that. But it was just I think just the idea of fast fashion. I mean, like of course I'll guiltily sometimes like be like, oh, like I wish I could buy that, or like I will sometimes buy it, but it's just better, I think, in my eyes, for like when I buy all my items secondhand, or I'm like pretty purposefully like choosing what I'm buying if I am gonna buy something that's not secondhand, because I also come to the realization where I'm like, I won't buy stuff because I'm like, oh, I know I can find it thrifting in the next 2 months if I'm lucky enough. So I'm like sort of hesitant on what to buy sometimes there.
I also love the consumer on the backside of your website too, who's willing to pay $20 to $30 to $40 for an item that would probably have cost $20, $30, $40 for a new version in a store, but they're willing to do that, and it truly has a pretty profound impact at scale if that was the case. And I feel like my generation was really bad. And later about I got to have the brand new thing. And so I worked at Abercrombie. That was the way that I fueled my the clothing that I wanted to buy. And the store policy was you literally had to buy the new season stuff to wear on the floor. Like you weren't allowed to wear old Abercrombie stuff.
Yeah, Abercrombie's the one store I will guiltily look at and be like, they've done a pretty good job of. I mean, the people that are working on the marketing team are pretty good at sort of recreating that like vintage look in most of their items now. Yeah. But I think part of the reason why the 90s and 2000s clothing is so popular is just like the quality of how it's crafted, where it's like a lot of the items are still as good as when they were made then. Is like their quality is not depleted from. I think that's sort of why it's been like this steadfast and true thing, is because the quality is the same as when it was then as now.
And it literally had to, because you couldn't resell it if it was, damaged or destroyed or weird shaped, and so they kind of had to hold up. Real quick, a spin off of you also have spent your winters working up at Timbuk, I believe. Working at the tree farm, which to me is the complete opposite end of the spectrum of employment. And so I wonder if there's any takeaways there that you can offer us of like what's the difference and different things you've learned working kind of in a manual labor kind of situation versus more of an online consumer kind of space.
Yeah, so the online consumer, I sort of work for myself, so it's all on my own time and how I want to do it. And if I want to put an effort, I'll put an effort, and if I want to make money, I'll make money. But I think Timbuk has been really good for the past 3 years. There's been like guiltily spent a time to be with friends and work and stuff like that. But I think in reality, like waking up at 7 a.m. and getting home at 6 p.m. for 4 weekends straight is like, it's draining, and it's during midterms, and you're like, why am I doing this? But every time like me and my friends look back on it, we're like, why are we enjoying it, and why do we wish we could go back? But it's also been good too, like culturally, we're the only workers there that speak English other than the migrant workers that come in every year for about 8 months. So it's also good with that, where it's like you're working side on side with these migrant workers, where like you get to talk about, like when I was in Spanish at the time, like Profe Mascuro, we would like talk about like how I would try and communicate a little bit with them, or like we would talk about like their lives back home and stuff like that. And like they'll also be on my social medias liking my stuff and like texting me. Awesome. So that's pretty cool. But it's good. I think manual labor is, it is what it is. It's going to be tiring, but it's also good just mentally, just sometimes going out and, you have to do work, but it'll be over by the end of the day, and there'll be an accomplishment out of it with money or just the actual work that you did. So
yeah, there's this like almost a vision. I baled hay when I was growing up, and to see like there's no more hay in the field and it's now on a trailer, like it just felt different, and you're exhausted. But to your point, it's a grind. Like it feels like you are exhausted physically. And man, I love the other part too, not to glaze over that, because what a gift, and the next question is actually going to dig into this a little bit, but, where we don't have a ton of diversity, to be able to like, work alongside someone, sort of creating that world is flat situation, more of a global perspective, just by working at a tree farm beside, the migrant workers who are coming in for the season. That's awesome. So that can then jump us into our next question. I hear it a ton of times, like our kids live in a bubble because we live in Granville, and they're not exposed to a lot. And so I hope and encourage, and it sounds like you get outside of that bubble and you go see other places and you travel. You've done some traveling. You've been to Japan, so that was part of a high school trip. Mm-hmm. Is that right? You moved to Texas, and that was for 2 years.
1 year. But I was born in Texas as well, so I get to claim. I get to say I get to say y'all without some reprimanding.
Yeah, for sure. So you were born in Texas and moved back to Texas. Was that part of your parents' job?
Yeah,
they really could educators. And then you were hosting a foreign exchange student. And so I just love all those things that are kind of breaking down the barriers of the bubble sometimes. All of those are going to give you exposure to the world. And I'm wondering, how did those experiences shape your worldview, your view of what life looks like outside of our village here?
Yeah, for sure. I think I can actually touch on this with the college application thing. A lot of the colleges, the questions that they ask are, what is your community, or like, how have you experienced diversity? What has your community been in your hometown, or have you joined a community? So I think when like those questions came up, I was like automatically like, what am I going to write about? I'm from Granville. Yeah. Like, I don't know, like I was like, what am I going to write about possibly? But I think I think I'll start with Paul. So I had an exchange student my junior year. He was from France. So the idea got brought up by my dad on spring break of sophomore year. And he was like, all right, guys, I just applied, blah, blah, blah. Like, we put our name in. We're going to get sent a list of names. And this is just like over at our Airbnb or whatever it is, just like right before I got about to go to dinner for like spring break. So we have no idea like this is a thing, a possibility. And of course, like me and my sister look at each other, me and my mom were like, oh, this is just him like shooting out an idea that like might possibly happen, might not.
Your dad's an idea guy. So
he is a big idea guy. So you never know like if that idea will come to fruition or like how much of it will. But
you also know it might.
yeah, there's that's what
There's a good chance.
There's a good chance that it possibly will. So he had them when he was younger. So I think this is like, and the way that I've talked to him about it in the past too, about was him choosing it. And it wasn't a force on us, but the idea to expand like our diversity of who we're relationships were with.
That was that was a motivator.
That was a big motivator for him, and I think in reality it was great, and I appreciate every single day that I've had with him. I think it was a year, of course, when you live with someone for a year, there's ups and downs, and I think in the beginning, of course, you're treating him like, oh, like, I don't know, not like sort of like a pest, but it's like your entire lifestyle's changed, and I've grown to miss him completely. And there was a time where I think it really clicked was we had a spring break trip our junior year, and like we just got extremely close over that trip, and like from that trip to the end when he left, we were just extremely close the entire time. So I think learning from him, learning how he is, like he'll send me videos here and there, we'll FaceTime with friends, and it's just like us screaming at each other, like him talking in French, and we'll make fun of him how his English is depleting and not as strong, but it was really great. And
well,
I think
how cool, and I'm sure your dad had some insights that this would happen, but forcing us out of that comfort zone.
Yeah.
Like we're such creatures of habit. I mean, and as a 42-year-old, this has gotten way worse. Like I'm even more a creature of habit, and so those things that drop into our lives that force us to be adaptable to change the way that we do things. And so that was what a gift that was, let alone the exposure to.
Yeah, and I think the adaptation I made was a fraction of the one that he made coming here. That's so there's also that aspect with him, just like respecting the choice that he made here and just be admired by like, wow, like
for a whole year. And I think his confidence grew the second he stepped here to the day he left was probably the biggest growth and the biggest like thing to look at and be like, all right, like he affected us, but like he changed completely and as for the better. And imagine going back home, the things that probably might have felt like a big deal to him that will seem like peanuts. Be like, this is nothing. I got this.
Yeah, he was like, a year in a different country. His confidence here, I think, soared, and that definitely is me. Like, he's a new person. I think he affected everyone here. Like, he was super kind, so it was super great. And then
this is so lame, but I went to Europe for a semester, and I felt like I was missing things back home at university. People. I mean, this is so silly, but like Counting Crows came and like these concerts, like, oh, I'm in Europe. And so kudos to him that he could take a pause out of his life. That would be hard.
Yeah. And it's great. And I think just the traveling aspect with like him coming here, like we're hoping to go there in the summertime. He'll come back here and visit.
Talk. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But I think just traveling as well is like expand that bubble. As you said, I went to Japan through a school trip with one of my friends, and it was, I think, being in Ohio, especially within America, is like pretty isolated in itself. As Ohio sort of has a stigma with it, but getting out.
There's a word for it now, right?
Yeah,
it's Ohio.
Yeah, it's Ohio. So, but yeah, Japan was super fun. It was with the school, and I think I appreciate it more as it's gone past with how it was ran, with just the ability to, like, I would have never been able to plan a trip out the way that it was. And of course, like, there's things you wish you could do differently on a trip. With a school trip, it's a school trip. It's not a pleasure trip with yourself. So. But just the amount of details that went into like everything we did there.
There's probably a little more structure, maybe even
a lot more structure than if me and my friend got dropped off there and had to fend for ourselves. So I also think is valuable in traveling as well, which is something I'm going to look forward to. I think in my colleges,
and you'll probably be. I mean, you'll be even more suited and comfortable making the choice to go do that because you did the thing with a little more structure, maybe. But.
Yeah, I think I was talking to my dad the other day. Is like going back. Just like without that structure, but already having that past experience in Japan, just like learning about the culture and like everything, like, but going back without a plan is also fun. Like where you're experiencing the actual culture itself. Like I'm going to get dropped off in a small town and visit, like only talk to locals and defend for myself, not have like a thing, but
not having a plan is when the best experiences happen for sure.
For sure. And it was great. I think the best part about it was the food. I'm a big sushi guy, which was like sort of what sparked the entire reason for asking my parents to go. I mean,
did it ruin sushi for you though coming back?
Coming
does
back.
It compare?
I think I was just so happy to eat sushi 3 times a day that I'm not gonna let it ruin anything. Okay. But it was the sushi and the fashion aspect of Japan that sort of like drew me to it. And it was
what's that like? What I honestly can't speak intelligently at all about what fashion in Japan would be.
I mean, America has like its own like thing, but
it's like
Japan
a subculture of fashion.
Like there's like a.
Is it very different?
It's very outlandish, and it's very like there's a street called or like a town called like Harajuku, which is like this like massive like epicenter of fashion, like lots of vintage, lots of like streetwear, lots of things. And it's like a normal outfit there might be the most outlandish outfit you could see in New York City. And it was like, it was just fun to like, even with like the anime and like the whole like aspect of like that culture as well, like people like what they wear on a daily basis was like super interesting to see, where it's like you might be turning your neck if you see one thing here, but like there it's like
where I feel like a lot of our fashion is sometimes subdued. Like it's very muted colors and round shapes.
And then you see also like that there's an entire story of just American fashion where it's like it's such a big culture there, like dress like an American, but it's like you see them how they dress, it's like super cool. So
I love cars and motorcycles are my thing, and they have similar like these very outlandish huge pipes and I mean the same kind of thing. So I could see that happening in fashion.
We got lucky on one of our stops for just a restroom break. Actually, there was a Porsche meet happening like in just a random parking lot of a gas station.
And it's really hard to own cars there that are not, they have kind of strict guidelines on what's allowed to be done to them. And so they'll often just be pulled over and car towed, I think.
Yeah, it was cool just to see like 20 Porsches like lined up with like all different like and different exhaust, different like and like they're all different colors and like all the owners are outside. Just awesome. Like so that was definitely cool to see like just like because like Japan has so much to offer. So like just that like the 30 minutes of the car culture we got to see was pretty cool and stuff like that.
That's awesome. Cool. So the next question moves into the next step of your life. You're going to blink and this semester is going to come and go. And I love that you said, it's social right now because, man, you've built out these relationships with people and you're going to go to your different spaces and places in the world. You'll come back and see each other, but it's cool that you're focusing on that. But so you're going to go out. You've decided to attend Middlebury. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
That's exciting. This is in Vermont.
It is, yeah.
I did very little searching on it, but just it was the first university in Vermont that was founded.
Yeah, 1800s. It's pretty old. Yeah,
which is cool. The culture of that. I'm wondering, what went into like the decision making process. Like I had never heard of Middlebury, and so how did you find it? Why did you pick it? What excites you about that?
Yeah, of course. So I think. So playing a sport in college was like never even like a thought on my mind until the end of junior year.
Sorry,
so,
I should have said that. You're playing football at Middlebury.
Yeah, I'm playing football.
Well.
So that's like the big reason I'm going. And I don't think with football I'd be able to get into the school without it. So
I love that you said that. I mean, that's a reality too, right? So leveraging, these things that you put a lot of energy and attention into and worked really hard. And so you can leverage that to where, and you're just saying like maybe your ACT or whatever wasn't quite what you think you would have had, but you're offering them going to be an athlete as well. And they'll look at that as a total package person coming in.
For sure. Yeah. So it started really was my end of my junior year. I always had this mindset where my academics were going to carry me to college. And I wasn't going to, I was like, I'm going to go to a school for my academics. I'm going to go to a school for where it's at, how I like it, stuff like that. And then I think
because if you start thinking athletically, that's going to skew.
I didn't want I just didn't want to go to a school that like wasn't in an area that I wanted to go. Like I didn't want to go in a random place. I didn't want to go to a school that was less academic. And then once I realized it really started was my junior year, a Cornell football coach came to Granville to talk with me and stuff like that. And it was like the first time where like schools had reached out to me and it was at like the academic level, which like I was planning to try to go to and stuff like that. And then it was really him that kickstart. It didn't go much past with them, but with the start of that, and then Columbia was like the first school where I really was like focusing my attention on. Went on a couple of visits there, and that was like cool. Just like open up my mind. Was like the first school I got to go to for football was Columbia in New York. So me and my dad got to go up on a day.
Yeah, and just to celebrate that you can be an athlete and an academic, that those two things aren't mutually exclusive. And so I love that you're juggling both of those things and. You wanted to pay respect to like I want to do well by my academics, but I also like playing the sport.
I think I had to post on. I started with I had to make a Twitter, I had to make a highlight tape. Once it got real was like when they started reaching out, and then I was like, oh, like this could get me into a school that I might have been a huge reach at with my portfolio before. So like that's really where I started thinking about football. Was thinking of it yes, I love playing football and I would love to play the next level, but it was sort of an added little bonus on my resume when I was applying to schools. It's football was a thing that could get me in. So
Because there is a sacrifice when you start thinking about being an athlete in college. Like, there are things you can't do as an academic or as in college because you have to put so much time into that.
Yeah, I think that is going to come to play. I'll talk about that for sure in a little bit. But it was like, it started with those schools, and then I was like dead set on like, if I'm going to play football, it's going to be at the Ivy League. Like, that's the only place I'll play football at. Like, I'm not going to like, that's the only place that I felt like my ego would like accept playing football academically as well. It was like, that was that big.
Like, you're not sacrificing.
Yeah.
It's like very clear in that moment. I'm not sacrificing my academics to play the sport.
Yeah, it wasn't going to like choose anywhere else. So like, I also realized that there's levels to it as well. And like with how colleges, so I think the funniest, like I was still sort of with my dad, was we were on a visit at UPenn, and they're like, we're in like a meeting with like the coach and stuff. And it's like me and a couple other players like in this meeting room. And he was like, if we recruited a kid, that's favorite part of the day is going to science class, and we recruited the wrong kid. And this is at UPenn, which is like Penn. Yeah. So it's like, and we just like, I looked at my dad and I was like, there's levels to sports, even at the Ivy League level. And it was like, I think Division I sports at any league, at any level is Division I sports, and that's what you're getting into. And I think that's where like opened my mind to like, wow, like I'm at a visit at UPenn, and this coach is talking about how they recruit the wrong kids if their favorite part of their day is going to school, and you're at this prestigious school. So I think
what a missed opportunity if you weren't there for the academics as well in one of those situations.
Yeah,
like
I think the Ivy, like I don't want to blow out a portion. Like when you go to those schools, like you're still getting an insane world class education while playing athletics at an Ivy League school. So I think there's just different levels with how much time and effort a D1 a D1 athletic takes, and I think.
And a D1, to differentiate there, they're getting a full ride to play there for the most part.
So Ivy League is weird. Ivy League is the one of the like they can't offer scholarships. Their scholarship in their eyes is getting you into the school.
Well, and are they D1?
They are. So
okay.
the Ivy League is D1. There's also the Patriot League, which has like Colgate, Bucknell, so other good schools as well, and like they can offer scholarships. So there's all these like it's. I also realized the amount of effort that goes into being D1 and what it is. And that summer into my senior year, I was going to camps and stuff. But I think it sort of morphed over as I started reaching out to like schools that like where I could see myself like thriving more as an athlete and a student. And that was my whole ego was still trying to go D1 and everything like that. And then my path to those schools actually wasn't at quarterback. I was getting recruited as a safety for all those schools. So it was like a thing where it's like, do I want to switch my position in high school senior year? Be like, do I want to ask my coach if I can play safety and not play quarterback, but like stuff like that.
And that would have been a realistic conversation.
That's what me and my dad had a big thing where it was like, is like safety something I want to focus on this last year to try and go to the school? Like, is this and it was like, it was just hard because like, that's what they were recruiting me as like more as an athlete, not a quarterback. And it was like, if I wanted to play college football, I want to play a quarterback. Like that's sort of another thing that's what I wanted to do if I was going to make that commitment to play. So eventually it was like started reaching out to other schools that other schools started reaching out to me, and like my first ever offer came from a school called Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, which is
that's a great school.
phenomenal school in itself. So it's like these academics is always like the big thing. So like went on a visit there late spring on my junior year. My dad went in, had no idea like what to look for. Had no idea I was gonna get an offer. So I got an offer on that visit, and it was like, oh, this is real. Like I could play college football, and it was at a school that was like met my academics. It was a good location within close to Ohio, but I think my thing was always trying to get East Coast. Was like how I viewed my college. Like before even looking at football colleges, I was looking at like Duke, UNC, looking at the Ivy Leagues. Like I really loved UVA. Was one of my number ones.
It's a beautiful campus.
Right. That was like when I went to like colleges before football even started. UVA was like we went on a perfect day. It was like college kids were out. We went it was like an extremely good like picturesque college when people are on the lawn. Like UVA like blew my mind out when I went. So that was like my dream school. Michigan was also a really big one for me. So like these schools like what I was looking at before football even got involved. And it was like this like East Coast like kick was always trying to get at me. And then so the school Middlebury I'm going to is part of a conference called the NESCAC, which is like small New England schools basically is like what it all is. So it's like I don't even know, like the closest West school might be in like New York.
Okay.
So it's like it's all East Coast. So they have like and the Middlebury's in Vermont, but there's like some of the other famous ones people know as like Tufts in Boston, Bowdoin up in Maine, stuff like those are like the schools and the same thing.
For sure.
So yeah, so that's really where my football, like my college like stuff happened. Was there was one camp so like of course like the way that colleges work is like you're getting phone calls, you're getting texts back and forth, you're sending out
I was going to ask that, what the process looks like on your end. Do you have to create, like videos and films and send those out to people to try to get them to recruit?
Yeah. So these coaches are doing a lot of recruiting themselves, but they're not going to recruit a kid that's not putting himself out there. So I think that's what I learned a lot. Like if your students are listening and they're like, oh, like would love to play college football or play a college sport one day, a lot of it is you're advertising yourself. It's like the NIL. It's like your name, image, and likeness. Like you have to brand yourself out to get out. So I didn't have any of that until my junior year. So I started putting it out my junior year.
Is that straight to coaches? Is there a social media?
So there's Twitter's where most recruiting goes on. So like post stuff like boom, like I'm posting like throwing clips. I'm throwing my highlights up there. I'm throwing like weightlifting. I'm throwing up like text. I'm like cold text. Like I cold texted every single quarterback coach and every single offensive coordinator in the Ivy League just to like see if I get replies back, like when it first started. And then
that's such a good experience for life though. Like
that's and then eventually like
start a conversation.
You get enough stuff out there, you're gonna following. Like I started getting followers. Like Middlebury they like found me technically is like how it started.
Because you had a presence out there.
Because I had a presence. So I had my Carnegie Mellon offer. So like when you get so Carnegie Mellon's a D3, a pretty good D3 football team is with their academics as well. But like once I got that, like you get an offer, like more traction sort of comes to you. So I got.
Is there a list? Like when you get an offer from that school, do other people find out about that? Like
I'll post about it. You post about it online. So like when I got that one, like that was when like I got more serious texts and phone calls from other schools. So like I think
like,
it was
if they want them.
It was always the NESCAC is like sort of like what like all my stuff came from. So there's like 3 schools. I had 4 schools that like I was like between. It was Bowdoin, Tufts, Middlebury, and Carnegie Mellon. And eventually it was between Carnegie Mellon and Middlebury. And I had an offer from Bowdoin, had an offer from Middlebury, had an offer from Carnegie Mellon, and it was in the works. Tufts just is weird with their offers. They always offer late compared to every other school. So it was like eventually maybe it would have been the thing. But it was like the way I did a process was I think my relationship with like the coach is also like where like you want to go, where like you're wanted. So both schools, phenomenal coaches, like would easily play for all of them. But when I like talked about like,
well, I mean, you go back to that Penn moment, when you have a coach who's like, if you're really excited about academics, this isn't, I got the wrong kid, that that maybe isn't the right situation.
So it was like, it was just super good. Where like when I went on my visit to Middlebury, it was like football, of course, is a focus, but like when we talked about stuff, he was like, I want you to go skiing in the summer or in the winter. I want you to go in your spring of your junior year, which is the biggest part of your football moment to probably start as a senior. I want you to go travel to Spain to do a semester abroad. I want you to take an internship in the summer instead of being here for training. Like it's like that was like the big thing where it's like
saw you as a human.
I think at football. That like the level of like I chose to like pursue sports at Division III, where it's like you get to not only be an athlete, but you get to be a student as well and live an experience where it's like, as I touched earlier, those 3 social, academics, and athletics, where it's like I get to have all 3 of those at a level that I enjoy. So I
love that comes full circle, and that's a part of your decision process is still balancing out those buckets.
For sure. And it really came down to like location-wise between Carnegie Mellon and Middlebury. It was like there are 2 different educations. One's a liberal arts and one's would be just a straight business, like going to business school and stuff like that. But it was like I'd always like East Coast has been like a big like back of my mind thing, or so where I would love to go. And like we used to go to Maine in the summer every year, and I don't know, it's just, like my dad grew up in Maine, so Bowdoin was always like my parents always thought I was gonna have a Bowdoin just because like Maine has been such a big thing. But when we visited Middlebury, it was like one of the first times where like I always tell this, where it's like I put my phone down the hour in and the hour out of Middlebury just looking around.
Just to look around.
And I was like I've experienced nature, but like just to like be like there, and I was like, wow, like this is beautiful. And like I like looked out, like had my window down, like this is like where I could see myself going to college. And like I think when you have that, a lot of people like have that moment when like they step on a college campus, they're like, oh, I could go to college here. I think that's where I really had it with Middlebury. It was like I could see myself here for 4 years. So
that's awesome.
That was my ultimate decision. Was I got to have a good social, got to have a good academic and football along with it, and get into a school that has high prestige that would have been a stretch without football. So.
Yeah, and not to, I just want to stress, as we say, this enabled you, you're using your athletics maybe to reach and get into a school that would have been a little more challenging, but you also had to have all your academics in check.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
not
it was-
just taking anybody
it-
here.
it-
You've
it
done
was-
a great job academically as well. But
Yeah, it was funny. It was like they couldn't offer you until they do a pre-read on you. So it's basically like you're doing a pre-application to a college before they can even send you like an official offer. So like it's like GPA,
Yeah.
like all this stuff. Like I had to write an essay for Bowdoin to get an offer, which was like unheard of. Like football is like, I don't know. It's you always have like a thing where it's like academics and football are like separate, but it's like for me to even have the opportunity to play football to school, I had to write an essay to get an offer, which is like pretty interesting to see. And it was like all about community based, nothing about football at all. So
what's your like major idea? What do you think
Yeah,
you're going
so-
towards?
I think I think I'll just go. It's liberal arts, so the like business is econ is the major you can have is econ. So I think 100% I'll go with that. But I'm getting a liberal arts education, so like I'm gonna be doing a lot more than just that.
Sure.
So I think that's what's gonna be super beneficial at the school I'm going to. But
With
see
football is double majoring, like there's no chance. Like
they do offer.
and
a
I
lot.
just meant from time wise. Like
Yeah, I don't. There's definitely kids that double major on the
Okay.
team, and there's definitely kids that major and minor. So they have an extremely good language program. It's like one of the top in the world. So like I don't know if like language is something I would do, but like a lot of kids will minor in a language, or I could see myself. I don't even know. It's something I know. I'll major in econ and we'll see what happens, and like when I'm on campus, what I explore and what options come to me, and like what opportunities I have. But I don't know. I think it's just good because the way that it's like I get to be an athlete and a student at the same time.
Yeah, and I like the idea that you kind of have an idea. You're not blindly sort of running into college. You know what you want, but also the willingness to say like I'm going to figure some of it out while I'm there because I don't even totally know until I get sort of immersed in it and specialize a little bit later. Cool. So moving into our next set of questions here. These are questions that I ask every guest. They're aimed at kind of helping middle school, high schoolers who are coming behind you, maybe navigate that time a little better, make some good decisions. The first one is if you could go back and tell your middle school self anything, which we were talking before this. You transferred in for you transferred back for your 8th grade year, and it was COVID your 8th grade year. So middle school life for you looked a little different than most. But if you could go back and tell your middle school self anything to make navigating that time a little bit easier, what would you go back and tell yourself?
Yeah, my middle school was all COVID. I had the full COVID experience in 7th grade with the lockdown, and then 8th grade was the half online with the mask and everything like that.
It seems like forever ago,
I know,
doesn't
it's
it?
crazy.
But it really wasn't.
No. So I think my biggest thing is I think I'll come back to the three things I've been harping on is just having the mindset of like knowing what you want to put your effort into with your social, your academics, and your athletics. I mean athletics could be theater. It could be it could be your stuff outside of school, science Olympiad, stuff like that. So
it
it's
could
not
be your business. You
Yeah,
have
it
this
could- yeah.
like that's a part of your bucket.
Yeah. So I think there's not doesn't have to be academics
Sure.
or athletics. It could be like what your niche thing outside of school is. So
Yeah, and really for you, your athletic bucket was a lot of things. You had a lot. You had a lot of different things that you were juggling inside of that extracurricular.
Yeah, and I think I really came down to like I had played 3 sports in middle school where it's like I didn't need to. Well, I mean, at the time I thought I had to and like stuff like that. But I think just like the thing I would give is like choose what you want to put your effort into, and especially put effort into things that reciprocate results back.
Would you
or
mind
give effort back.
explaining that comment of like you felt you had to play 3 sports?
Well, it was just it's something I had done ever since I was like in 3rd grade. I was like, well, I don't see myself not playing 3 seasons of a sport until I got my freshman year and played 3 seasons of a sport, and it was miserable. And I was like, I have no free time. And I was like, I dropped basketball, and I was like, it was just like I have stress that like not because of playing, but like just because I have no time from the start of my start of the first day of school to the last day of school where I'm in a sport. So I think I found the importance of like having where I chose my social or I chose my academics over that period of time.
Your buckets weren't balanced.
No, yeah. So I think that was.
I intentionally asked you to clarify that because the ELM class that I started here really is aimed at kind of combating that, because I think school sucks up a lot of time. We do a really good job of filling those hours, and then athletics take up a lot of time, and a lot of people, and this is not this is not from either of us saying like stop doing athletics or stop doing 3 sports. Just don't do them out of reflex. Make sure that you're choosing to do them
like
because
what you
love
want to
them.
do.
Yeah. And then having that time, the ELM class is just having time. I want to ask kids again, like, what do you care about? Like, what are you passionate about in the world? Because if you fill up every minute and every hour of your day, you don't have time to think about those things.
Yeah.
Or
I really think it is like you put effort into what you're passionate about, where it's like, I think a big thing where like I would recommend is like I think I said it was like put effort into things that give effort back, where it's like don't put effort into something that's dying, or like don't water a dead flower. It's like if it's a sport, if it's a friendship, if it's like an academic thing, of course academics put your effort into it, but it's like if it's just like something that's like, I think it's just like it's important to focus your attention on things that like are important to you and like will reciprocate like results back to you.
It should fill you up in some way.
Yeah.
Like it should give you something back, some energy back, if it's the right thing.
For sure.
Yeah, I love that. All right, cool. So unfortunately, stress is something that increases quite a bit. I think I honestly, I've seen it increase at intermediate school, and then for my own children, and then middle school it gets a little bit more, and then high school, and honestly, it probably doesn't go away. Like I feel a lot of stress too. I think about your parents driving you to 3 sports. I'm sure they were feeling stressed too. And so I'm wondering if you as you navigated the last few years, if you found things that you felt like were good strategies to manage your stress.
Yeah, I think I'll start by saying that like the way the way that I approach things, or like the way my brain's wired, is I've gone through high school with minimal stress while doing a lot of things. And I don't want to say it's been easy or it's been something that's come naturally, but it's just the way that I think I've always attacked things is like, I don't know, it's just the way that my brain's wired. It's like not the biggest thing, but I think I've had moments for sure where I've been like, why am I doing so much at a certain time? And I think that's where I feel where like I could have made the biggest changes is my freshman year when I played 3 sports and was trying to keep all this academic stuff up and all the social stuff up, where it's like, what do I need to take out of my life that'll allow other things to grow, and the things that truly need to grow. Playing basketball was not one thing that needed to grow at that time, where it's like, I think just important to focus on like what at that time is like, I don't know, everything's important, I guess, when like you're putting effort.
Well, they are unless they're not. I mean, I think you get to make that choice,
it's like,
right?
It's really like, and like sometimes a lot of things that you might not seem important, like people are like forcing onto you, where it's like your parent might be like, oh, I want you to play this sport, blah, blah, blah. I want you to do this thing. I want you to play this instrument, blah, 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 where it's like,
and those will be stress points because they haven't bought into it.
Yeah, and it's like when you're doing stuff that like you don't love, I think stress forms more, where it's like people are like this pressure like to make you do it, where it's like, why am I doing it?
I'm curious what your internal voice is, because you're like I luckily you didn't feel a lot of stress, and you're kind of how I deal with it. I'm wondering what you're telling yourself to where those moments, because you were juggling a lot of things. So like, what is the internal voice inside your head telling you that makes it not stressful?
It's sort of just like, I know it'll get done, where it's like, or I know things will turn out well, where it's like, or like even with like school, like my friends joke with me and like tell me that like I treat homework as like dessert, where it's like I would go home and be like, oh, if I like threw as a homework, like it's not like a thing where it's like I'm like dreading it, where it's like, oh that's like this, I'll attack it, and I'll be like I'll be accomplished when it's done.
Yeah.
Or like I like to see like, oh, like I have the 2-hour practice and I have to do 2 hours of homework. Like I like plan out my whole night, where it's like, I think stress is a big thing, where it's like it can overtake you if you don't try and prepare for it. So I think that's what I did a good job of throughout my high school, was like trying to prepare and sort of like combat it before it happened. I think that's really why I didn't experience much of it, was just because I was able to like plan. I'm not a big like schedule, like I'm gonna plan out blah 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 this hour, this time I'm gonna do this homework then, but I think I would just be able to look out and be like, oh, like if I want to do this with my friends this weekend, I have to do this now, or if I have this practice, then I have to be able to do my homework before and then after, and then I have to like plan out, like not plan out, but like I'm just sort of like trying to like proactively combat against stress before it happens. I think that's sort of like how I attacked it, was like not wait till the stress hit me, or not wait to react to the stress, but try and prevent the stress from happening.
Yeah, because so many people will spend time spiraling about the stress rather than like just do the thing, like just get it done.
It's also subjective to the person. Like you can like that's where I think I've had an opportunity, and like I'm grateful for like how I can do that, where I know you can't just, a lot of people, it's not like a thing where you can just click and do. So
easier said than done.
Yeah,
sometimes.
I think, and a lot of people, like you got to respect how they attack it and how it treats, or how it affects them. So it's a lot different. It's like, it's something I don't really have much advice on, just because like the way that I've dealt with it has been like pretty minimal throughout my high school. So
yeah, I love the empathy that you said just now, like just the idea that everybody's going to cope with that differently, and you got to make space for everyone's whatever they're doing, dealing, and how they're coping. But I also think there's something valuable in the fact that you said, like, I just know it's going to get done, because there's so many people who are juggling a lot and they always get it done, but then the next thing comes and they're going to stress out about it. So having the ability to pause and go like, wait, I get it. I'm going to get it done because I get it done, and try to take a breath.
And
but again, easier said.
This weekend, actually, me and my dad are on this hike throughout the summer, and we started our first hiking thing this weekend. And it's like a hike, but also like a wellness thing as well. So one of the first things one of the guys shared was a quote where it's "the sun will rise tomorrow," where it's like every single, like, no matter what the stress that you have, the sun will rise tomorrow and it'll be a new day. So it's like, I think there's that thing too, where it's like, I know it'll get done, but I also know the sun will rise tomorrow and it'll be a new day. And no matter how much stress I had or whatever was affecting me the other day, like, I know today will be different. So
that's good. That's good perspective. Okay, so I actually skipped over a question, so I'm going to go back. What's one thing that you didn't totally appreciate in either middle school or high school, but looking back, you're like, you know what, that was actually pretty great?
Yeah, I think middle school's hard because it was COVID. So like, I don't know if I look back on not being able to see people or like not being able to like hang out and stuff. But I think
I do just to stress that, man. And how quickly everyone forgot. But when we got to come back to school, you know, and again,
I think that's what I take for granted is like that time of like being like, oh, like my entire life was completely like different from what it is. So I think that's something I'll appreciate is like now more is like my time to be able to be with you. I think that's what I also appreciate from high school is just the relationships I've built, because relationships are truly like what you're going to care. I mean, of course you learn, Granville's learning for life, but I think it's really the relationships you build in high school like is what's going to like be there for life as well. So I think that's important. I think that's the thing that I've come to appreciate the most throughout high school is just the people that I've grown to know, even if it's like one of my best friends or people that I'm acquainted with in class. So I think the relationships that you build with teachers, friends, acquaintances, anyone is truly like the most valuable things that you'll have throughout high school.
Well said. Absolutely. All right. So what's some advice that you would give to a middle schooler or high schooler in managing technology? And you can look at that from like, you know, and you've had to use tech quite a bit even around surrounding your business, but you can look at it from cell phone or computer, however you want to approach that. But what would you tell them about how to manage technology?
Yeah, I think with how much technology is a part of our education and how much it can also be a distraction is technology is a tool, and if you know how to use it correctly, it can be a great tool for our education. So I think that's what I think I would harp on is just the ability that like I think AI again such a negative thing with like education, but I think the more that I've like done AI throughout like not just writing an essay for me, but like how can I use AI to like help me creatively think, or how can I use AI to give me a prompt that I'm gonna like boom, that gave me an idea and I'm gonna start with that. So it's like I think the idea that technology is a tool that like it can be abused. It can be abused for the wrong reasons, but also can be used for the like great reasons and provide opportunity. So I think that's most important is just like sort of focus on like how can I use technology not to cheat, but how can I use technology to give me an upper hand and excel in my own mindset and like propel myself forward within like how I'm thinking about stuff. As well as like I think you get so wrapped up with like being on your phone all day. Like when I get off here, like I'm gonna go scroll my phone, I'm gonna go snap my friends, I'm gonna go start a conversation where it's like half of your life is lived on your phone, where it's you have a life in person as well. So
especially you just
live
got
that one as well.
Your previous one of like being so appreciative of the relationships,
and it's
the social
like,
component.
I think you were talking where it's like it's rare just to sit down and talk.
Yeah.
Without like I'm not on my phone right now. Like I'm face to face with you, where it's like just appreciate like how much yes your phone is your life and you build relationships and you can build strength within relationships and stuff like that, but also just know that the true strength doesn't come from digits on a phone or text. It's coming from like you actually being in person and talking with people.
Yeah, it's a funny thing about podcasting because it's I'm asking people to use an hour of their time on technology away from other human beings to listen, but I rarely get to sit down, is what I was saying earlier, and have an hour long face-to-face conversation with someone. And it even feels weird for a minute.
Yeah.
You have to like, oh, I'm just staring at this person and we're talking. Yeah. And then it becomes really normal. And I think the willingness to like listen to that conversation though and dig in for an hour is why, you know, the real substance. If I was chasing, I want as many people to listen as possible. I'd make these 15 minutes and be done because it'd be easy to digest. Yeah, but
I find myself doing that sometimes where it's like, oh, it's not the TikTok 10-second scroll, but really, there's things that are worth your time and focus on those as well.
Yeah, good advice on AI. I just try to be excited about technology, and so as a teacher, I'm sure someone will use it to circumvent work, but that's how I qualify it for my students. I was like, if you're using it to get around work or get out of work, it's probably not. You're not using it as the effective tool. But if you're using it to I mean, it's basically a personal assistant. Like you said, I've had such cool interactions and conversations that's unlocked creative thinking in a way that would be really hard to do definitely as an individual, and maybe even harder to do in a large group. And so if you use it that way, I think there's lots of cool stuff.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities with it.
It's an efficiency tool too,
yeah,
for sure. So yeah, I like that. So using it
in the right ways.
In the right ways. And I think what that is yet to be determined. But if you keep asking yourself that question,
and it changes every day, so there's no telling. Like,
we're in the first phase of AI, right? So I'm excited to see. It'll be wild, but I can't even imagine for my middle schoolers where they're headed, like what the world will look like when they run out into it. Who knows? That adaptability piece, just be ready to pivot and spin. Cool. All right. So my last question here is, is there any advice that you would offer middle high schooler, last chance here, things they might want to start doing now that will help them be better prepared when they're a senior sitting in the seat that you're in?
Yeah, I think there's always like your niche thing that makes you you, and it's not awkward or weird to focus on that. So just focus on that. I think mine was clothing and stuff like that, and it's something I've focused on from middle school all the way till now, and I think it'll become important, not just I think it shapes who you are, and it's a big definition of who you are. So just focus on the small niche things that make you you, and like a small sense, when you come to college, you're going to write a personal statement, you're going to write a passion project thing. So like, I wouldn't say build it now just for the idea of college, but build it now for what makes you you. And when you get to those times, it'll make it easier for that. And by that time, you'll figure out what you want to put your effort into, and it might change, and your niche thing might change from now until your senior year, but just find that niche thing that makes you you and focus on that.
I'm going to use this as two things you said there, but I love that it's one that circled back to the earlier conversation about you being you in middle school. So many people lose that. And so I'm like, geez, please just hang on to it. And like, almost it's okay if it feels awkward, like run into the awkwardness. Like,
I always felt like I was so defined by athletics, where it's like a lot of things, like my definition of me is like athletics only, where it's like there's so much more than just athletics. There's so much more than like one part of you. So like just express all of it, I guess, like that. Yeah.
And the second thing you said was the passion part. And what I see so often happening is there's this last ditch effort as a senior or to like pull some passion thing together, which can feel, sort of artificial, where that's with this ELM class. I have these students who are doing these really big things, and I'm like, okay, you build out this thing. You could do that once a year for the next 5 years. It maybe would take a week of your life of thought. It's really cool in helping our community, whatever it is. It's like it's doing something profound, but you also can leverage that later. And I'm like, that's not why you're doing it.
It's always a lot more authentic too when it's been something that's like And when you're truly passionate about it, like people can tell and people can see like the product of it as well.
And it feels
you
different.
Truly care. Yeah,
like you did this for
like
5 years.
You feel more accomplished as well within yourself. So I think that's for sure.
That's awesome. Go find your passion as soon as you can. I love it. And you said, but it can change.
Yeah. And don't feel pressured. It's like, tomorrow I have to go find what's going to define me for the next 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Be on the lookout.
And you can try new things, I think.
Man. Yeah. All right. We did it. Thanks so much,
Beckett.
Beckett.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate your time. I look forward to your dad's posts. I think they better both be athletic and academic moving forward, celebrating the cool things you're doing. And I just appreciate the time talking.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. As always, thank you to my guests for taking time to sit down and share their experience with us. A shout out to Augie Husto for creating the original audio used in this episode. Another shout out to all my listeners. In a content-rich world, I am humbled by those who take the time to hear the reflection, introspection, and advice offered inside these recordings. I truly believe this podcast has made me a better teacher, father, and overall human being. I hope you find that to be true as well. Until next time, be kind, be grateful, be you.